1083. Whoever trusts the great thinker Jesus should explore his spirit. To love his ideas about equality and love for all equally. Love this knowledge and embed it firmly within yourself. It will be easier to teleport own soul into higher sensations of joy and peace. Everything is about touching love, the whole world. It is essential that no one and nothing be left out of this loving embrace of goodness. 1084. Spiritual life should be taken up by everyone, no matter who they are. Only the heart gives happiness. And everyone has a desire for happiness written in the soul. It can be soiled a little. However, knowledge of the needs of the soul cleanses. Even songs about love or drinking morning coffee can do it. A good mood is good and joyful love. 1085. We should be persuaded that the possibility of improving the world depends on ourselves, on how effectively we use all our abilities and talents to seek real progress. Tolerance and forgiveness of each other should become a supporting force. Without mercy, everything can burn to the ground. Stubbornness and rants do not create a good climate. It's better to have a cup of tea together than to hate each other over even one word, period, or comma. And so what if you are right? More have it for yourself, to others give only love. Padre Pio's words. 1086. The ideologies of the major religions differ so dramatically in doctrines, rituals, and customs that it is impossible to reconcile them. There have always been disputes and wars between them. The unfortunate Crusades. Catholics at one time fielded an army of several thousand children to fight for Catholicism. All of them died, and the cardinals what led to this war sat in palaces. Therefore, I believe that what was artificially created by man should be withdrawn and forgotten once and for all. Religions sow confusion and terrible unrest in the world. Therefore, those who are wiser should give up participating in such religions. Universal knowledge, universal love, universal salvation. Jesus preached just that. He was not religious inwardly. When he matured, he learned what he was about. He preached knowledge of the fallen universe and promoted love from every angle. He directed everyone to the eternal heaven, the eternal universe with God. One does not have to be a religious, traditional believer to recognize and know God. Sometimes a non-believer is closer to God than a believer. Padre Pio's words. 1087. Still, the religions are doing their thing. They build temples, bishops' palaces, multiply parishes, establish new officials, bishops, archbishops, and any other church auxiliaries. Outdo each other in the number of people baptized, the number of people coming to Sunday Mass, wafers handed out, the amount of money collected at carols, confessions arranged, funerals and weddings officiated, devotional items sold, etc. This, of course, has nothing to do with love, knowledge, and saving life. The business is turning. This is not what Jesus talked about as he lived on earth. It is known that the Gospels were written for the public, as well as the Old Testament. The truth about Jesus is not there. Someday it will come out. Jesus is a figure too beautiful philosophically to be in such a falsified church. The church is spiritual. The church is love and heart, not an institution. This is what the great philosopher, the angel from heaven, preached. Someday this will probably change, and the church will convert to Jesus the heart. An adult should decide for himself whether he wants to be baptized or not. Padre Pio's words. The Old Testament should have been forgotten long ago. Padre Pio's words. 1088. The question arises, which religion is true? In my opinion, none. Although Padre Pio told me that in this situation, Catholicism is the most appropriate religion at the moment. In the beginning there was no religion, but actual contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations. It was Padre Pio who also told me, there used to be more frequent contacts with earthlings, now they are arriving less. And he added, the moon is already moved by human hand. The visitors taught people how to live, how to develop, how to acquire technology, allowing them to travel around the universe. They taught what to do to achieve eternal life. Religions arose later, and they mean nothing. They are only an adulterated souvenir of contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations, and nothing more. Gods, cults, rituals were created by people, because in this way they wanted to become rich. They wanted powerful power, and such a rich god they invented for their own selfish needs. What it was like at the very beginning was forgotten. In the centuries that followed, they didn't even try to read the primordial beginning. As the artificially created religion thrived and brought unimaginable wealth to the priests and rulers of that religion, especially when it comes to the Catholic Christian religion, money and riches flowed on their own. For this reason mainly, there was no attempt to return to the sources. Such an opportunity could not be missed. Anyone who opposed such a god and the religious laws that were supposedly established through him was annihilated, immediately stoned, driven out of town, excommunicated, burned at the stake of the Holy Inquisition, or impaled. To put it rather colloquially, no one such ideological religion did not jump up. Today the punishments have been eased a little. It's better, but the problem remains unsolved. Nevertheless, I will say after Padre Pio, that of all the religions in the world, Catholicism is now the most appropriate religion, best adapted to the levels of the human mind. 1089. However, it seems that what was important to convey about the primordial origins of our human race was contained quite precisely in myths. After civilizations destroyed by wars, stories, myths, rock, and terrestrial images survived. Good ones too. 40,000 Hindu gods and deities today are nowhere near the one Christian God. One gets the impression, as if the Jewish people made an accumulation of all the gods that exist in the world and created one out of them. And Christianity, in the name of this one God, tried to conquer the whole world. Did it succeed in doing so? I think it did. Christianity became one of many powerful religions. Well, but as it happens in life, it competes with the others. It does not accept the doctrines of Buddhism or Hinduism, for example, and it even consciously fights them. I wonder what can come out of this hatred between religions in the future. I know, nothing. They are all empty and devoid of truth. All that's left of knowledge is blind faith, which is easily exploited for the conquest of a planet or many planets, settled by material angels. Someday you will know who Jesus really was. Padre Pio's words. 1090. Reflecting on the multifarious history of mankind, it is not easy to collect relevant information that could unequivocally determine the actual course of this history. Much has been forgotten, much has been falsified. Very little remains. The largest number of surviving transmissions rests in Hindu monasteries. There is nothing left in Catholicism. Padre Pio's words. Many have been translated into European languages, but perhaps only 1/100th of these writings. The rest are waiting to be deciphered. But even so, much can be learned from what we already have. Christianity has burned and hidden the real knowledge, the real truth about life. Catholicism has closed the door to knowledge, itself does not enter, and no one tram let in. Padre Pio's words. 1091. While nurturing others, it is necessary not to miss the opportunity to pray for their intentions. Prayer creates connection and participation in understanding the world. The angels teared up, creating the galaxies and suffering in it. They didn't even think it would happen. However, when you pray for the world, you neutralize evil. You give a good attitude, friendship, cordiality, a good climate. And in a good climate, evil does not dwell. It's worth it. It's really worth praying for angels, so that they do not spread warfare and ignorance. We are those angels in human flesh for now. So mutual love, respect, and prayer, meanwhile, are needed. In heaven, we no longer need to pray. There we just party. Although, until the last soul returns from the galaxies to heaven, one can ask God to help them. The so-called Satan, this is a completely wrong term. He is our brother and full of angels involved. With him we created worlds and sustained them by force. He and his angelic circle, to which we also belong, now after the strikes and departure from his elite, will also liberate themselves. They will all enter heaven one day. Well, maybe not everyone, because some souls God will annihilate. The evil that existed in the material universe will eventually enter heaven. It will still take time before it is cleansed of hatred and pride. Fortunately, God has plenty of time. He is eternal. He will wait for the last soul from the material universes. Padre Pio's words. He will wait, like a mother waits for a kindergarten child who has extra activities. I know, because I myself sometimes waited for my children. The kindergarten ladies extended the classes. But I found time as a human being. And God, He has much more time. We are His children. 1092. Through warm thinking, as it were, you create an area of love and peace for people on an ongoing basis. When you pray, you heal. You eliminate the most harmful regulations and customs. When you pray, you bandage wounds, hug humanity to your heart, give warmth, care, and love. All this is accomplished during prayer. Prayer releases all spiritual qualities, all programs of consolation. Whoever does not believe this has the right to do so. But let him begin to seek God and pray. He will see that this is true. Prayer in our lives is to become known as the most positive phenomenon. She solidly determines the performance of all obligations to life. Prayer always expresses a smile and kindness of heart. 1093. The human soul is covered with 3 layers: body, feelings, and mind. These 3 treasures must be perfected in order to function freely and interestingly in this world. Jesus, a great thinker who was not inwardly religious, also encouraged perfection. When he learned the truth about man, he rejected beliefs, religions, and all rituals. He became a free man, knowing what harmony, love, and beauty are all about. God is not religious, He is irreligious. Jesus encouraged this attitude, saying, "Be perfect, as your Father in heaven is perfect." The conclusions come to mind. 1094. What goes around is important, but not the most important. For it is not on material possessions that a person's life depends. Padre Pio's words. What is important is the soul. She gives meaning to everything. She is the manifestation of life, forms, shapes in our body. The more perfect the soul, the lighter, softer, tastier everything becomes. Money, too, is a manifestation of the soul. When we have enough of them, life becomes better. That is why the poor in the world should not exist. Poverty means misery and even wars. There should no longer be illiterate people today. Padre Pio's words. 1095. Let everyone do things his own way, and conscience is a system of values and safeguards against abuse. You always know how you are doing wrong. Padre Pio's words. 1096. The soul created by God has tremendous capabilities. It created the microcosm and the macrocosm. Another thing is that it created the microcosm unnecessarily, because suffering was not meant to be. The soul is itself a form, an entity, an infinity, and likes to play with anything all the time. When it reaches the limit of its desire, it tries in the other direction. It plays and loves endlessly. When you finish your journey in heaven, you return to your palace. Then you take the journey again, but already in a different direction. Padre Pio's words. 1097. Jesus, the angel from heaven, came here as our brother to understand us and draw us to heaven. That's why Jesus was even called Sin, because after all, he drank with tax collectors and sinners, talked to them, made them aware. He defended prostitutes, human weaknesses, and misunderstanding. He explained. He knew who was behind it and who was manipulating. Who? Other cosmic civilizations, in whose service is the genetic system of forgetting the source. Even among the apostles there were homosexuals. Jesus tolerated it and understood them, he said. Padre Pio's words. It is known who messed up the genes, chromosomes, mutating programs, the angel brothers which came out of heaven. Jesus knew it. He was tolerant. He loved everyone equally. Nevertheless, homosexuality has become a fashion. This is not good. 1098. What is the great and wonderful heaven all about? I will describe it as briefly as possible in the words of Padre Pio. There nothing is must, nothing is needed, only wanted. The rest, everyone creates for themselves through the beauty and attractions of love. 1099. Once, when St. John of the Cross was ill and lying in bed for some time, he felt very sad. So he asked his friends to bring a street band to his room. So they went and brought the musicians. As soon as they began to play street tunes, John became enthralled with them. The sounds of the instruments caused him to experience an ecstasy of the senses, and he was transported to heaven. The musicians were very surprised. They did not expect that their simple music would cause John to be so delighted. Saint John of the Cross is a mystic, doctor of the Church and reformer. He was born in 1542 in Fontiveros, near the city of Avila. He died in Uberla on December 14, 1591. He achieved spiritual greatness in a short life of 49 years. The writings he left behind and the role he played cannot be understood without a closer look at his incredible life, his aspirations, and mystical experiences. These writings, however, were altered by church censors to eliminate all the heresies for which he had previously been thrown into monastic dungeons. He managed to escape, otherwise he would have been burned. 1100. The wise soul, through the impressions experienced at the encounter with the spiritual world, remembers them perfectly and has no desire to connect with the transient world. It lives as if by necessity in this world. Almost everyone comes to this conclusion a few years before their death. Some know it from birth. It depends on what baggage we are born with on earth. On different lands, there are different experiences. On this earth, quite heavy. But there are worse lands as well. Saint John of the Cross XV century says, "Before the soul becomes one with God, it must first pass through all forms, shapes, and sensations. It wouldn't have to go through this if it hadn't left paradise voluntarily. But it happened. It's best to skip all these forms. But it is not easy. Life and matter appeal to us. And here is the real empirical problem, especially when we are young. Then in old age comes existential, philosophical, and spiritual reflection. Sometimes it is too late to enter heaven directly after death. And one has to be born again in purgatory, in different lands, to make up for lost spiritual lessons based on love of God and neighbor." 1101. Life really is a mystery, but only for those who never search. There is always something to learn. After all, we are the cause of these material worlds. Those who climb upwards eventually reach the top of that mountain. It is not an easy climb. However, it should be undertaken, even for its own satisfaction, not to mention the amazing experiences, adventures, and holy peace in the heart. It is worth pondering the meaning of life, seeking its purpose. Our value grows to the extent that we know the purpose of our path. Human interest grows insofar as we put our own effort into it. Without this, little succeeds. It is the same with seeking the purpose of life. Perception of knowledge. Like a ring on the finger shines the comparison's feeling, finds success strength for purpose. All you have to do is sit quietly straight without honors and decorations and absorb the infallible energy deep into yourself, where law ceases to be law, where pain ceases to be pain and the mind turns to volatility, the heart turns to song. If one foresees it sooner than death meets it, means heaven. 1102. God is never angry. God is as imperturbable as a stone to my evil. He loved me once, and so loves me constantly equally, even when I degrade myself. He does not change his mind. He promised to love and he keeps his word. Padre Pio's words. Therefore, all the galaxies, and in them countless civilizations, will return to heaven, because they will find that God has forgiven them all, and let them go for wanting to leave heaven. They will find that God is faithful to his promises of love. Jesus, while he was here, understood the same thing at the end, that God has no regrets, that he gave the first hand of agreement with the angels. Living in different civilizations, and after the many transformations, programmable mutations they made for themselves, he encourages everyone to return. Heaven is not fully heaven without those who are still outside of it. Padre Pio's words. When everyone returns, then it will be as it was meant to be. Many angels descend and today from heaven to the galaxies voluntarily to help various civilizations understand this. But they are generally killed or rejected. Some manage to pass on something. One such angel was Jesus. But unfortunately, his biography was hypocritical. His teachings were changed, using his sacrifice to popularize power and business. It is time to talk about Jesus differently than before. The church is abusing his person, and the forces of evil are taking advantage of this. 1103. Every person on earth is born without the memory of God. This was decided by the angels, the creators of our bodies, higher up in the hierarchy of power and knowledge. It is worth knowing that the bodily shell prevents us from remembering heaven. The soul relies on an imperfect body, Padre Pio's words. The body is a natural law and forbidden to remember the love of God. And since the body and all the systems it has produced in its reason, this is what they are doing to eliminate completely the concept of angelic consciousness. But these civilizations above in the galaxies do not understand that they themselves have long since been eliminated by the fact of birth. Because they too, after millions of years of living in one body, die. Let me say it strongly now. Birth in material systems' fallen heavens means the elimination of the original heaven from consciousness. When we are born, we pass through a river of oblivion. We know nothing about life. The philosopher Jesus was born voluntarily on earth in order to figure it all out by himself in limited conditions. And he succeeded. He found his soul. He began to advise others how this can be achieved, to regain the fullness of the soul. Through love and forgiveness, one can rework own consciousness anew. That was his idea. 1104. Everything that happened to our angelic souls was caused by leaving heaven and forgetting about eternal life. Material universes, or small heavens, created by angels on the model of the original heaven, but imperfect, caused enormous activity in the material world. And this contributed more and more to the departure from God, from the great royal, heavenly community, the love of all love. We became entangled in something that has no symptom of eternal life. It is necessary to get out of it. How? Through the two greatest commandments of love that Jesus promoted. Love of God and neighbor. 1105. One thought, and it would heal everything in the soul and a little in this world. I'm sorry, Dad, Mom. I want to return to the heaven I once needlessly left. That's all. With this desire, all issues are resolved, even though we will still live in the fetters of the claw of materialism. But the soul will already be free. The soul, trapped by systems of control and exploitation, will begin to sing in honor of love and use it as fuel. From now on, nothing will harm it anymore. Not even the little hell of the galaxies that still surrounds it. 1106. Forgetting God, partly intentionally programmed, has caused all our impairments on the soul. The result is these incomplete universes, homes destroyed by nature, our mortal bodies, etc. The angels have been busy with their universes and constantly repairing them, because they are falling apart. They are busy with civilizations and their perpetual repairs. They no longer have time to think about the cause of cosmic paralysis. They have forgotten God and live their incomplete lives, full of discomfort. It is a pity that we have been dragged into this. All Earth systems, political, economic, and others, are arranged to deal only with this planet, not to think about the higher life, the eternal life in heaven. 1107. Resurrection means nothing more than the exchange of the body for a new, better one, heavenly, if one deserves it. Unfortunately, there is the possibility of taking back the corporeal shell immediately after death, or in some time. This is what generally happens. So just let someone not think that if he dies, his body will one day rise from the earth. No, the body will fall off forever, turning into ions and atoms. Many cemeteries still have our bones lying around from previous incarnations. Jesus' teachings on love and other knowledge, not written down or misrepresented in the Gospels. The original neo-catechumenate notebooks for teachers, accelerates the process of gaining a heavenly body. The idea of love can cause one to enter heaven immediately and receive a new form of existence. The earthly body will never be resurrected. Spiritual resurrection was talked about much earlier, many thousands of years. It was well known. People have been saving themselves for millions of years. The knowledge of Jesus only causes this process to accelerate, nothing more. And it is not necessary to believe in the resurrection of the body. Every angel will be resurrected in spirit, believer or non-believer. A matter of time, everyone dies and moves on. And so it goes on for billions of years. I won't mention other extraterrestrial civilizations. Let's not exaggerate that the gates of heaven opened when Jesus died. That's what church politics may want. The reality is quite different. It has cleverly used this to become a powerful and influential religion with a solid foundation of resurrection. Meanwhile, resurrection has always been there, but not physical, as the church wants, but spiritual. Padre Pio has long been in heaven, and his body still lies behind glass in the chapel. After his death, he continued to come visible in his former form to Mrs. Crezia, writing back to her letters. Once he came to her with a heavenly body. When she saw him, she cried for a month and could not recover. That's how beautiful he was. Echo of heaven's echoes flapped around people. In the middle of dirt road flew a dove, tears rolled from beneath the eyelids. It told me you were coming to see me, glows brightened. In the eyes my thoughts sat on the green leaves of trees, on the flowers and the mist. You are coming to me. Among the green of the sky I will dance with you. I will raise my head, smiling will chime with melodies blue. We will traverse all the sky routes. Today the echoes of heavens are spreading around 1108. It is important to know the truth about man, his situation in which he finds himself, living here on earth. What should he do to break out of the matrix of secrets strangely concealed by the alien angels? 1109. Man desires a lot but does not know what would be best, so he is full of doubts. However, if he addressed his desires wrapped in a veil of selfless love and obliviousness to his own wrongs, the doubts would disappear. 1110. Fairy tale. A very sensitive creature lived in a certain pretty fairy tale. Satisfied, the world made her happy. But this fairy tale was mixed with other earthly fairy tales. Staying among people can be different. Not everyone knows how to create a wonderful world for themselves. There are those whose fairy tales exude coldness, extremity, black color, disappointing all the way. A very sensitive being, even though she had her fairy tale concocted magnificently, she chafed against those. They shattered her dreams so badly that she narrowly missed dying. She saw heaven and suddenly found herself in hell. Is it possible to survive something like that? Negative words struck her like lightning with great power, intensely. Suddenly her entire inner world was swept away from her soul. The destructive claw exhausted her life force, and the fairy tale she had long created for herself suddenly shattered against the rock of tragic events. The royal creature suffered such damage to her soul that she was unable to rebuild her kingdom. Her ideal ceased to exist in an instant. Having all the information on how to rebuild her chamber of happiness, despair prevented her from doing anything. After a while she gained a little strength, but the trauma was so deep that she lost the remnants of hope. By no means could she arouse joy in her battered soul. Fortunately, she found a good-natured fairy who decided to help her rebuild the collapsed castle. Let's just hope that she is willing to accept this help and believe that everything can be changed. Fate can be reversed and gradually return to colorful elation. That it is again possible to dream and live a fairy tale ideal. 1111. No one has the ability to know all the material universes. The universes are everywhere, seemingly without any boundary. But it seems so only to man. God knows the boundaries of the material cosmos, Padre Pio's words. The spiritual world has no boundaries. And since there are no boundaries, it is possible to explore this life indefinitely. Therefore, there will always be new adventures, impressions, and experiences waiting for us, journeys in heaven. 1112. The universe abhors loneliness, is sociable and extremely entertaining. Hence, everyone loves life, including animals, and looks forward every day to getting better and merrier. We long every day to become rich, beautiful, attractive. It doesn't matter whether we achieve it now or after death, the desire remains. The treasure of life that we received as a gift from God has become irreversible. All that remains is to make full use of it and play with it to our heart's content, as much as we have imagination enough. There is still a small nuance. These worlds, however, must disappear, because beautiful fairy tales cannot survive in them for long. DNA codes, subatomic energies. They would like to obtain eternity, but they cannot. The great philosopher Jesus said an interesting thing, that he came to this world from perfect worlds created by the hand of God. He invited persistently to take advantage of the offer of the truly eternal kingdoms of heaven. His idea has not died out, it is still relevant. Although Krishna gained more popularity than Jesus, he preached the same thing. Therefore, Padre Pio wanted me to study the Hindu scriptures, which I did. He added that in their writings some of the truth still survives. In Catholicism, it does not. The Church forbade it. But, added Padre Pio, the Church will take back the knowledge of reincarnation, and there will be no more bishops. A not inconsiderable revolution in the Church is preparing, apparently. 11:13. Whoever recognizes that there is no God, and there is only the most beautiful and subtle light capable of creating intelligence and happiness, is wrong. Yes, the typical conception of God, religions, superstitions, liturgies taken from ancient civilizations, spiritual sciences, all this is the product of lower, still underdeveloped intelligences. Someone in the cosmos allows this, but it is not the ultimate proponent, because this concept creates civilization stagnation and suffering for living beings in the name of beliefs. The cosmos and civilizations within it want to recognize the true God, but still have a lot of problems with it. Federations of angels, creators of worlds, continue to quarrel over beliefs and influence. The expression of this hopeless struggle is human politics. You can see it like the palm of your hand when factions hate and quarrel. Padre Pio once told me, Satan knows that God is, and he knows that he lost to God a long time ago, but he still doesn't forgive because he has freedom. 11:14. The universe is not a person, it is not a God. It is only a giver that creates bodies and personalities, which in turn help it organize free and independent universes. And the goal of civilization is happiness and satisfaction with life. However, the universe refuses to recognize that there is something above it. For this reason, it continues to be sustained. When it recognizes the superiority of spiritual universes, it will capitulate and admit that, however, it has produced a lot of suffering and is on fire. Then he will surrender his reins to the true life of the Spirit, God. And God will eventually delete these pseudo-heaven universes and take everyone to heaven, if they are ready. 11:15. The universe is mainly the play of light, which creates structures of matter, of life. The universe is free, spontaneous, intelligent, but fallible. Just consider man. After all, there is not an hour that he does not make a mistake, do something wrong. He is unable to remember a longer number, even for 2 seconds, and many other things that can be cited in the millions that a person does not master or does wrong. Mistakes are made even by programs that transcribe RNA to DNA, from which bad mutations and ultimately human suffering in the form of various ailments and diseases arise. A strong coupling of the soul with the body could cure this somewhat. But perennial consumerism has dimmed this art. Jesus was right, he thought it through well. The material cosmos is not the best to be in. That's why he talked about the ideal cosmos, heaven. 11:16. The universe dictates the conditions of life for every being, every civilization. Jesus is the same way. The universe has produced everything that is visible and recognizable. Although for some life forms existing at a low stage of evolution, not yet recognizable. The universe takes care of everything that is necessary for the life of the emergence of intelligent forms. The universe educates, as necessary destroys the obsolescence of its material creations. The universe produces feelings, gives pleasure, happiness, and love. It creates and transforms itself into intelligence. It creates for itself galaxies, stars, planets, and the highest state of life, the material sky. He intelligently and playfully invites everyone he has managed to colorfully educate into this heaven. But it's not quite like that. The universe is managed by science, and science is managed by angels, And these angels, they are such rascals because they once came out of heaven and pretend that the galaxies they created will replace the real heaven for us. They won't. It's a good thing we are dying in these natural food-based heavens. Hey, because maybe soon we will be born in the perfect world, the original heaven. 11:17. Divine vision is eternal. But I point out it is about forms and light from God, which does not blind. It's galactic. It was badly designed by the angels. Their codes break down, like everything else. It takes a long time, but still. Nevertheless, it intelligently leads all developing to eternal happiness and contentment, though not all at once. We have, as it were, already coded that each of us only wants better, wants to be happier. In this direction, all life is spontaneously pushed in the form of evolution, reincarnation, and above all, through love education. Even if someone consciously opposes this, his ultimate finale will still be an eternal and happy life. Why so? Because the intelligent cosmos will not allow its one and only unique light of the soul to be lost, to which nature with its light, scientific background of angels always gives bows and tribute. Even if these angels are atheists and hardened enemies of God, they believe as if in God through the phenomenon of life and joy. 11:18. Everything is based on life-giving light, and it doesn't matter whether they are highly evolved beings in the universe, whether they are humans, ants, or bacteria. All these systems, forms, beings are governed by universes, which are made of thinking element. Yes, the light of thought is artificial intelligence. All is ruled by life, all is ruled by the universe, all is ruled by light. And all these things are one and the same. It is better figuratively to tell us that everything is ruled by the universe. Without the universe, you won't get a tan or move a finger. The array of elements of the stars, including our sun, has been placed in our body DNA. But the matter is much deeper. The world is silent, and it is the spirit that invents worlds. The soul, we will never know how it is constructed. It is certainly not a mist, but a concrete self-contained entity created by God. 11:19. It is worth noting that, as in other configurations, energy halos are possessed by all beings, animate and inanimate things. One can cite as an example the Kirlian photo experiments, where, as it turns out, the energy halo is even in a dry leaf, until an explosion occurs and the breath of life leaves it. There is no place in the universe where there is not this basic ingredient of life-light. Light does not necessarily see itself. There are beings who do not yet see the light, Padre Pio's words. With a shout of hope. They rose with a shout of hope. The hurricane of betrayal has stopped. They remembered the smell of fields, full moon, and singing, in suffering and hardship, in the drudgery of fighting the question of how to live here. They raised their heads dying. They didn't love anyone. They were just frantically calling out. The pulse was no longer heard by anyone. Indifference gripped their hearts. Not even the orphans' cries moved them, as clanking copper. Their pride and hatred was. They rose up with a shout of hope. They remembered that this is not allowed. A river of grief flowed. They understood anew that it is necessary to shape daily life with love. Your voice, like spring waters. I can't tell who you are. You keep making yourself new. Your colors are changing every moment. Smiles, whispers, glances are like meadows caressed by the wind. Lord, I can't separate my dream from your arms, my dream and your lips like the fragrance of heavenly peace. 11:20. Human intellectual and emotional penetrations deal with virtually all areas of life. This is not to say that by learning through effort and finding various regularities, a person will learn something. The human mind entangled in patents, writing, politics, career, leadership, a game called bossiness, apparent religious activities, and other matters is not at all better than insects, which also learn and struggle in their own way. They sleep, eat, and develop a population like humans. For insects, lifespan closes in hours or days, in humans in years. The body predispositions of insects and animals are somewhat different from humans, but humans do not inquire into their angelic, spiritual laws, and thus are no different from a monkey, for example. The monkey jumps in the trees, while we create, for example, philosophical faculties, after which we also jump like stupid, not knowing on which branch of philosophy we will find a better ego treat. This is true in other fields as well. We exist for higher purposes, love purposes, divine tales. All creation groans and sighs, awaiting liberation. 1121. However, human consciousness is a piece of faith-based space, at least in the beginning. Then it transforms into knowledge, and at the end it's all about knowing and tasting love. Along the way, beautiful shining adventures happen to her, but they are short-lived and kind of unreal, because this world is not quite real, it is fully unoriginal. It is only a picture of the imagination that the angels already had in heaven, and then came out of it. And on this basis they created what we see. In this world, everything ends one by one, so it can't be real. Although the stones sting our feet and we feel the world tangibly, it is not the one, the dream, the ideal one. Dreams reach farther, because the soul has it in its mind and is drawn to heaven. There is nothing sweeter than heaven. It is a pity that we left it, so let's go back. Jesus helps 100% in this. Jesus' mother also. Mary today is a great angel in heaven, Padre Pio's words. 1122. There is a very imperfect consciousness. The angels in the galaxies, so we too have one. How difficult it is to break through to our own soul, although we use it all the time. The soul is sort of next door, in the shadows. We see needs from a lower shelf, material needs. The soul also has needs, but they are already related only to love and transcendental pleasure. The soul will sometimes break through into this world, then it charms the eyes of the imagination of others. 1123. The soul knows that the material conditions of its life are highly dependent on many factors. Most of them are unknown. Someone made a big secret out of it, someone cared about it. Certainly not God. He does not fall into such extremes. He is the ideal. Any event can affect us very painfully, and there is nothing we can do about it. It is enough to drink Pepsi, already the body stimulated with poison. There are 16 teaspoons of sugar and caffeine in it. Sugar breeds cancer. Sugar distracts the nerves, makes hyperactivity, especially in children. Traps abound at every turn. If a person did not pay attention, did not learn, the soul would quickly leave the body. And we still need such a body to learn to consciously come out of it, to bend it to the knowledge of eternal happiness, where there are no longer the slightest problems with existence and happiness. 1124. Love is unconditional like a dog. It's enough that he feels. He doesn't need to know. But with humans it works both ways. The more you know, the greater you are. In being original, knowledge is no longer necessary, because everything is learned directly. Man must acquire different knowledge, otherwise love will be lost. An intricate process, but only in the material world. Emptiness and patience, two contradictions. I have to grasp it to live here. Where's the emptiness as there's an uproar all around? Where's the patience when there's nerves all around? Everything is in a rush as if incalculable. One chases the other, chaos breaks the peace and peace forces movement. Where is the justice here? Silence and shouting. Where are the promised heavens? Who pushed me into this killer land? No mercy, matter is ruthless and fiery, and there is no peace on it. I don't know how to live with it. And I don't know how to beat it, as with what? Body. 1125. Give, don't pretend. Giving is the most beautiful declaration of gratitude for existence and paradise in the future. 1126. You don't have to get everything right at all. No angel promised us, when they designed our bodies and all of nature, that here we would be perfect. Angels are not perfect scientists, geneticists. Pride and jealousy won out over pure science. They realized that they had created an evil nature, evil laws that cause through the digestive system, and more, to eat each other. A planet of suffering and death, though it conquers us with its beauty. Nature created as competition for itself. This is how nature works, terribly brutal. And if you look below the grass, through a magnifying glass, you can see the real hell there. Everyone fights with everyone, for everything. Therefore, a little distance from reality, a critical distance. There is no need to praise something that kills us, while giving us a sense of faint satisfaction. Whether you succeed or fail, God loves you equally. You succeed or fail, your joy or annoyance. This does not affect God's love for you. We suffer for the angels' mistakes. Joy is a gift of heaven, but heaven must be seen. It is not that it is in the middle of us. It's just a saying. It is a great work to see heaven beyond these unoriginal worlds, which fall one by one, like political parties. Similarly, civilizations of which there were many on earth, even higher placed and developed than ours now. They all ate themselves. This is not what heaven is about. 1127. In the galaxies, evil and good have mixed, and the result is suffering, partial knowledge, ignorance and hubris of very high beings, angels. Even the powers of the cosmos. But it's a shame to talk about it, because these are difficult issues. I will add, Jesus, a great thinker, a friend of people, knew all this. At the end of his life, he understood it. Before that, he was learning to know the world, as each of us. Although he came down voluntarily from heaven to earth, he experienced a river of oblivion. And I have to say that it's not easy for someone from heaven to be born on material lands, because they are very controlled in this regard by the angels from these worlds. Jesus had to seek God as we do. He learned to work, to assemble chairs. He got stressed, he suffered. Padre Pio's words. He was an angel, like any of us. He came to give us a bouquet of flowers from heaven. That's all, as far as he is concerned. If he saves us, it is through the words he left for sincere practice, words of love for neighbor and for God. The church has made a vein of gold, psychological and material, for itself out of his person. Now it would be good to turn it all around. But who has the strength to do that? No one anymore, so it is what it is. The words of Jesus still have a salvific effect anyway, and outside the church. 1128. Those who are not inferior in anything, who can forgive everything, explain and even defend themselves, should be considered mature. How different than ordinary. Sometimes it's okay to shout for the sake of repentance. Yes, Jesus was just like that, because he understood the difficulties of life in galaxies, created as alternative heavens. He was unbelievably forgiving and good to everyone. The enemies he recommended to love. Does this fit in our heads? Ah, how beautiful and difficult at the same time. It is worth it. And for such an attitude one has heaven in the future. 1129. Until the last angel returns from the galaxies to heaven, heaven will not be fully heaven, Padre Pio's words. We wait for them and for ourselves, until we return. Chances are everyone has the same, no matter how many bad truths have been established. No matter how cruel nature has been created, no matter how much evil we have done in different lives, everyone will be reborn and return. Because God is the best of the best parents, Padre Pio's words. He defends us at all costs, not like our human universal courts. A human judge can't be a good mom, but is an interpretation of a heartless law. And the law comes from where? From sin. If the master judge were judging his daughter, he wouldn't be so harsh as he would toward foreign daughters. God loves everyone equally, and the saint and the murderer, for they are his eternal children. And in the end, he will convince them to come home and snuggle up to the warm oven to warm their dreams and feelings. 1130. Your concern should always relate to love. Do nothing without her affection, and if you can't afford it, act with love in your mind, at a distance. 1131. I love life, even when it is difficult, because after the storm, the sun will always come out. But after all, there in the world of ideals, the sun shines all the time. There are no storms. Please think of ideas like Plato, or Jesus, I forget, memory weak, nevertheless I try. Higher state of phenomena. Thanks to the benefit, necessity meets the will of legitimate possibility of the good trusting. Someone involves giving up a mysterious element of personality, a nature higher than knowledge, can answer the terrible and friendly meaning of life, impotent witness. Hope saves the true joy of new processes of love in the sketches of the mind and temperature, teach. This fact in the fertile qualities of consciousness surrounds the world with the happiness of knowledge. 1132. The uneducated soul wants to juxtapose God with earthly reality, but if it perceives that it does not succeed, it gives up further attempts and searches. This is why there are so many atheist angels, people. The posted wall of mystery programmed into our DNA structure discourages the soul. But it is not just our fault. This is how the cosmic civilizations that designed our bodies decided. The angels messed up, which is why we have difficulty learning anything. Slowly, however, we can move forward and break down these unpleasant veils, loving and opening our minds as much as we can. 1133. It is necessary to also know how to doubt, but never in the quest to know a greater truth, a better reality. Never. We give up too easily. In libraries, volumes of books, it scares us sometimes. Everyone writes about some aspect of life. We are not able to read everything. But do we have to? No. It's good that there are books. It's such a stage of consent to expand. But this is not always the case. Knowledge is just as capable of redrawing like glass our soul. Besides, this has happened before. Ancient times, each of us still has this scratch today. That's why we live in difficult worlds, in unoriginal galaxies, created by this very knowledge. Jesus talked about it, but all his knowledge was destroyed. There is nothing. This taint will disappear from our souls, but only through love. No one today remembers this anymore, which once happened. Because material development and at the same time degradation into inconvenience and misinformation have gone tremendously far over billions of years. And we open our eyes in surprise after we are born. What does this life mean? The body. What do religions and progress mean? What does knowledge mean? Which is lacking. What does our pursuit of pleasure and contentment mean? Each book, in its own way, tries to solve these puzzles somehow. But in fact, there are only a few sentences in each book that are reasonably good. If one were to collect these sentences from many books in this way, some wisdom would come out of the mix. But still incomplete. Padre Pio's words. 1134. Eyes look all their lives. They look for the beauty they have never seen before. This is the mark of our angelicity, the attribute of God in us, who creates beauty for himself, as if in unconsciousness, so that later we can consciously delight in it. We have the same. Of the royal family we are. Let us not be afraid of anything. God knows about us and remembers. He gives a hand, Padre Pio's words, and in it a bouquet of flowers for us. He wants to snatch us to himself, to his lands of delight. But we like our toys, that is, these galaxies, these earthly paradises where suffering happens. We wallow in them. Well, how do we get us out of here? We want on earth, not in heaven. Yes, there is a small heaven here too, but small nonetheless. The eyes are still looking for the ideal. Let's follow the eyes, and we will find heaven. 1135. If instead of beliefs, creeds, conflicting religions and laws, there was promoted love from the heart alone, harmony and tolerance would appear in our space, and there would be no problem with immigrants, newcomers. The planet is everyone's, without exception. We are divided by culture, creed, religion, ideology. Even character does not divide as much as belief and creed. Religions do not know love. They promote the politics of power and dominion. Jesus, whom I like very much, for being courageous and direct, and how he loved. As he forgave, he didn't remember the wrongdoing. He didn't return to it toward the person in question. Padre Pio's words. Notice Jesus did not build a single temple. Padre Pio's words. He did not establish any religion. He had friends whom he convinced to love, and that's all. He suggested that if this is of value to them, let them talk about it in their families, and further, where they can. And what is it now? Business, not love. That's why wars break out every now and then. 1136. The senses reach out to the soul, although they still obscure it greatly. That's why there is the delight of taste, sight, touch, etc. Everyone knows. When you touch someone, you feel the consciousness of the soul, just as thoughts touch the soul. You cannot escape from the soul. It experiences every pleasure and suffering. Outside the galaxies, suffering fortunately no longer exists. Soothing pleasure alone remains. 1137. When the soul is not ready to go higher, it reincarnates back into the material sky and begins to suffer again. The world of the cosmic sky so overwhelms her until she loses track of what this life is all about. So she accepts the materialistic philosophy. In this way, a person goes through almost everything in science, progress, and the beauty of this world and still thinks he is happy, without completely seeing the deeper meaning of life, which would give him the knowledge of reality and move to higher levels of happiness, to climb further and further. He is once again deceived by the angels and by his own failure to recognize the deepest gift of existence. Invisible sweetness. I write to you, invisible sweetness, to see you. I speak in order to taste you. Now I look behind you to admire you. I think of you to marvel at. I want you to speak to me in all languages, smile with all colors, to look at me, with all eyes to kiss me, with all the lips you don't lack. I'm already unconscious at the thought of it, and it's not heaven yet. 1138. A great deed depends on the degree of consciousness and humility, and above all on love. Some people do a lot of good, but it will not be counted to them at all in the book of life, because they were driven by selfishness, popularity, careerism. This with God does not have the slightest recognition. A simple thought can save a person, an angel. It does not even need deeds. First of all, a thought is a deed, much more important than hands. Our every thought should be full of love for everything. Even when we get angry sometimes because something doesn't work out. 1139. Sometimes you don't even know you are doing good. Love and goodness are within us. Love is a universal energy. We have access to it all the time. However, we don't always use it. 1140. What is good comes from unconditional love. The difficulties are on the side of the cosmic light. I hope that one day we will escape from the cosmos and everything will calm down. In the ideal world, evil does not exist. There are the candies themselves. 1141. Love is the highest film school. That's why it is so difficult to play this role in life. It takes a lot of practice to become a good actor. We play to please other loves. Love is loved in love. The scope of its action and expression is infinite, unlimited, eternal. Life is a game, Padre Pio's words. Hero in the dark. Immeasurable periods of investigative banners have drawn up disciplined fantasies of the undereducated frighteningly fascinate, and it gradually passes religion into buried authenticity. We recognize ourselves in nothingness and plunge our senses into the mystique of disbelief. At the root of totalitarian hopes, we expect central silence, and love for science pierces us with the bayonet of suggestion. We think we're alive when we doubted long ago, an empty gun. Will I find the strength to shoot into the void? A foreigner of disbelief I am, and a hero in the darkness. But it will end. Love will bloom again. 1142. Human knowledge is finite, and no matter how we speculate, try hard to explain the world, God and everything, it's all blocked for now. Everything in humans ends up in symbols, conjectures anyway, meant to represent what is supposedly important. Science can only combine ingredients and observe processes. On its own, it can't create even a grain of sand out of nothing. And this is progress, knowledge? None. Man boasts so much about his achievements and actually knows nothing. He doesn't even know anything about himself. Everyone accumulates various knowledge, philosophical, political, economic, cultural. But this is not much different from the food supply accumulated by a squirrel. It buries a nut and then forgets where it placed it and languishes poor. All these topics are related to and conflated with temporary nature. If no human being inquiries into the principles of spiritual life, he should consider himself a monkey or other animal, not yet possessing the infliction of the spirit. Only complete truth can elevate human identity to the heights of the heavenly spirit. This is what all people should seek. Their destiny is eternal pleasure in heaven. 1143. Souls sometimes cease to obey positive freedom. They go their own ways, next to the beauty and joy of the noble community. They possess but do not share. they have freedom. But really the spirit of freedom does not exist in them. They possess material knowledge, but use it for interest contacts. All this happened because we all left heaven voluntarily a very long time ago, supposedly in search of even better happiness, not appreciating what was. Well, and we changed a bit when the power supply, the life support, began to run out. Fighting and pushing began. This continues today on various planets and existential levels. All those who came out of heaven meant well, but disharmony was created. The cosmos, nature and all living beings were created. It was not God who created nature and animals, it was us, as former angels, still in other bodily, intellectual structures, where others remain to this day. I say what I know. 1144. Life is not about speculative philosophy, or even economics that will produce super machines and vehicles for us. Such an approach makes us addicted, like trees make a monkey. The basic form of being human is knowledge. But two-sided knowledge, earthly and non-earthly. We should explore both. Then any progress is possible and will not be threatened. If we stop at other knowledge, produced by the human intellect, we will end up the same way every brain ends up, in the grave. And no one will even mention it. Spiritual knowledge, the knowledge of love, everyone remembers it, because they want to immerse themselves in it and love in it. As someone was good, generations will remember his goodness. And even beyond the galaxies, eternally beautiful and young, we easily know the good of all loved angels, male or female, and we can be with them. 1145. Who will believe your words declaring love when actions prove otherwise? This is utopia. It would be better not to say you are a Catholic at all, but rather to declare yourself a non-believer. That would be a healthier attitude. Deeds that flow from humility, from the heart, love, have the highest value, and are of the greatest importance for progress. Love and good deeds change the entire earthly heaven to more resemble the original heaven. Religions destroy heaven rather than enhance it, but every belief somehow counts for the ego there. One who loves and does well, even without religion, means that this person knows God within himself. Even if he didn't believe in God, love is God because love only wants good, never bad. And if it comes out bad, it doesn't matter anymore then. Evil happens only in the material cosmos, and it is necessary to have understanding for it, because it is done by eternal angels, our wandering souls. Evil will one day radiate out as the angels return to heaven. The cosmos has fewer and fewer souls as they depart one by one to the original heaven. Hence the problem of hands to work with, while sustaining life in it. But this is probably a good thing. All will return to heaven, Padre Pio's words. 1146. In the galaxies the body lives reality and the soul lives fantasy. In heaven, both body and soul live a beautiful fantasy, a delightful fairy tale. 1147. Beauty is the work of God, and the work of God is the ability to perceive and experience it. There is much to be thankful for. Even if it is not perfect yet for some cosmic reasons. One can guess what they are. However, let us rejoice in every perceived beauty, because it reminds us of the paradise we lost, heaven. 1148. Our soul grieves all the time because it wants to love, and here the problems are millions. The soul is created only for love. It is worth reminding ourselves of this. The body, moreover, similarly, because this is its tender clothing. In heaven there is not a single problem. There nothing is needed, nothing is required, one only wants. Padre Pio's words. Along with the feeling of love, Hocus Pocus begins with all the grace. 1149. The soul is immaterial, so it needs an interior. There is its paradise beloved. The material world in this form of misery, she does not need. Unfortunately, she was fooled by life before she was born, and then after she was born. Therefore, externality keeps hurting her, and the soul doesn't know how to deal with it. When, meanwhile, the mental mind, coated with the body, is reasonably satisfied with contact with matter. But not completely, because the body also gets its due, it suffers. And the soul somehow feels it in its own way. And it aches for the body, and for its consciousness, which basically knows nothing about why this is happening. However, it is possible to learn something about this phenomenon. It is necessary to search, to overcome the barriers of memory and disbelief. In God all things are possible. Padre Pio's words. 1150. Boredom is caused by knowledge, or rather the lack of it. From human ignorance, human knowledge is created, its various practical, intellectual components. In spirituality there is no knowledge. If knowledge arises, it means that it has been there for a long time, and we sort of discover it. We toil around it, like a horse at the plow. The human mind is so imperfect that it needs knowledge to do something. This is good, but at the same time ridiculous, because the fullness of knowledge has always existed and does exist. We just don't have access to it. And here is the problem. Our mind abhors emptiness. Padre Pio's words. It needs knowledge of anything, because it will go crazy. The soul doesn't need knowledge. It has access to the fullness of life. But to get there, we have to squeeze through the brain, the human mind. That's the genetic design we have. Rather very limited. In the new body, the heavenly body, the romantic body that we will receive in heaven, this problem does not exist. There everything is open. We are entertained by creativity and love. 1151. Not love, but pride causes rigidity, negative pride, satisfaction with own various results. This is what destroys everything in angels. It destroys all beautiful love. Excessive self-satisfaction puts us at odds with the needs of others. Mental conflict is born. Finally, stress. Humility and true love nullify all neurosis. Waiting. You are flying away, a moment of love, you are flying away. The sun's rays bid you a warm farewell. The time has come to bind with a glance the joy sublime. You are flying away, a moment nice, you are flying away. My youth is fading away. Step quietly and don't shed a loving memory. Take a handful of flowers with you on the road to keep you warmer. Day longed for, I will await your return. When you succumb, come weary nights with grief washed over your eyes. Moment true, understanding my last pain. When will you return to my oak thresholds? 1152. We don't have to build ourselves palaces on earth. Palaces exist in heaven and everyone has many of them. Today the poor and humble, there they will live like kings. There is wealth itself. And all the angels, that is, we love themselves in all kinds of art to enchant others with it. On earth a symptom of this already exists, but it is only an imperfect reflection. The shadow of a tree on the water is our present life. The tree in the sun is heaven. Such is the difference here and there. No worries, costumes and dresses also exist in heaven. There is incredible beauty, harmony, and lack of envy. Well, and there is no dust, no need to clean. Complete harmony of everything. Every day I see your angel in heaven in a different dress. Padre Pio's words. Each of us dreams wonderfully, and they remind us of the heaven we used to be in. Fact. It didn't work out a bit with earthly heavens. Tough luck. Instead, we will be very experienced angels in heaven. We will have great respect for daring to enter unoriginal worlds created by the same angels, us and our friends countless throughout the universe. Although we have messed with the capabilities of the soul, we will be greatly appreciated. So much evil in collapsing galaxies. This is our work. Billions of years of suffering, inconvenience. Everything counts and has counted. Although there were no material worlds in God's plans, He created the perfect heaven, freedom. We went into the unknown. After billions of years we landed on this planet. Let's return to heaven as soon as possible. Longings tell what it is. Everyone remembers it, because he is all the time an angel, and remembers what it was like there. 1153. If you strive for progress, comfort, beauty, and pleasure, you reproduce in the desires of the soul the original heaven, the eternal. Matter too is the work of the Spirit. Padre Pio's words. 1154. Evil does not matter, it will radiate. A matter of time, it will end when the angels long for true happiness. For now they associate it with Earths and material galaxies. As they step down and expose their hand to God in agreement, the evil will evaporate and the great returns to heaven will come. As long as this world exists, there will be problems with happiness and love. It is necessary to take the option of Plato, or even better, Jesus. 1155. It is impossible to understand God in the flesh. It is impossible to see Him with human eyes eye to eye. Too weak genetics and many other subparticles inadequate to perceive such subtle powers of God. By intuition and logical theory, we can understand that He exists by inference and analysis of all cosmic entities. We believe and love. This is enough at the earthly stage. We trust Him as our best parent. 1. This is wonderful. 1156. Love works like a drug. It makes in us a joyful freedom and limitlessness of life. We live like gods. We live like celestials. We suffer a little still, but this too shall pass. When we die, and we will be born in heaven. There is something of heaven on earth. Padre Pio's words. 1157. We must not, in caring for ourselves, forget about the poorest. There are plenty of poor angels in the galaxies on various planets. There are civilizations at every sun. When you look at the sky in the evening, you see the suns or stars. Around them are planets, on them live angels. What came out of the sky like us? It is necessary to think about our friends sometimes, as they think about us. Thinking is the basis of all civilization. And yes, actions, it depends what kind. Hands are different. To be able to share knowledge, heart, hands. This is important. Giving heartfelt thoughts to the angels, who agonize like us in the galaxies, is an expression of love. Love is love, to all equally. We today as degraded angels, for positive rebellion against our colleagues, also angels, against their abuses, we live as human beings. After death, everything will change. If we discover God and recognize His laws of tolerance, humility, and mutual love. 1158. All of us in the material universes, founded as alternative heavens by the angels, constitute one love. We all love to love. The Church has labeled some as Satanists, but has forgotten that the Church is also that Satan. Just kidding. There are no devils. There is progress, sometimes collapse. The material angels have lost their way. They posed religions, parties, states, empires, powers, one against the other. Hatred, quarrels, especially religious ones. Religious wars, because this is the truth. They fight views. They smile, promote culture, but as if it came to something, they will reach for the rifle. It's the same in the galaxies. Satan in the ecclesiastical mind is a failure to understand the alternative non-beings. A failure to understand that one can go astray. Padre Pio said, all angels will save themselves, every person. It's a matter of learning, experience, and time. There is no other option. Everyone will return to heaven, even the worst angels in the universe. If this sentence is to be a shock to the Church, so be it. Amen. To some clergy, instead of a host, a rifle would be more fitting. Padre Pio's words drive the difference. It's not just for prestige reasons that the appearance of good is bad. Formal concentration of consequences on the ground uncompromising have found their place from fault case. The existence of a valuable good also applies to ethical platforms. In the development of concepts, approximations are made zero to terms. Considered identity at the bottom of embodiment has a pure environment of art amid suffering and issues of authenticity. Entangled beauty held down by weakness of conscience needs extra effort of love research, creative unveiling without ambiguity of theory to make true the stimulated impulses of life. 1159. This should not happen in the economics of countries when something is not profitable to sell, and, for example, the product is drowned in the sea. Meanwhile, people are starving to death. In this situation, couldn't the crops be taken to poverty-stricken places? The third world, shouldn't it be helped in an organized way? It would be enough for each richer country to set aside a portion of its land harvest every year and send it back to its starving brothers and sisters, angels. After all, in human bodies now, this can be done seamlessly. And here one hears that there is no such will. They say, let them help themselves. We prefer to sink the overproduction into the sea, destroy rather than give. It's not worth it. The size of this economic madness is enormous. Jesus, a great thinker and universal philosopher, taught to share with others, poorer. A single person doesn't have much opportunity, unless he is very rich. But a nation, a country, a government can do it, even without the acquiescence of the people, for the reason that such is the duty of those in power, to support poorer angels. Let's not forget, we have life for free, the soul or consciousness we also have for free, the body we have for free, the mystique of sexual pleasure we have for free. So what is the problem? Even eternal life we have for free from God. 1160. There are angels on earth variously degraded through science, genetic experiments of higher civilizations. Some wanted it right and it didn't work out. Others knew it was wrong with the codes, and yet they applied them. All the angels who came out of heaven do this. So let's justify everyone, without any conditions, because we used to do it ourselves. And there was a knock, we wised up. A few more steps, and there will be heaven. But not on earth. Beyond the material galaxies, in the original galaxies, the divine. 1161. If you understand that God is abundant and everything is ultimately His, then you will cease to be fearful. Because you will empower yourself to trust Him. He gives everything. He will give you everything from your pin, your house, your wife, your children to the angels in heaven. Of course, what's in the galaxy, everything will turn to dust. But on the real side of life in the eternal heaven, nothing perishes or decays. For millions of years, all civilizations in space have known this. Some earlier, others later discovered it. Christianity has not said anything new, nor has it saved anyone. If a person does not come to it himself through seeking goodness, love and eternity, no church will help him. If you close yourself off, heaven has no access to you. You are lost for many thousands of years. That's why this purgatory lasts almost to infinity, Padre Pio's words. 1162. What in fact is heaven? Let me put it this way. The most attractive thing in heaven and on earth is the soul. Not the forms surrounding its world, but the living, impulsive soul, which is a bundle of all sorts of ideas, actions, inspirations. The soul perpetually has something in store to enchant and interest. That is what heaven is. Solitude in the midst of forms does not initiate happiness. Happiness is given by the other soul, the angels with whom one can fool around, play pranks, philosophize, and have fun. This is heaven, a soul alive with life, mystical eternal fun. There is always something going on with the soul, and the forms just stare at it. The soul is heaven, and its forms are used to express its follies. This is the real heaven in the middle of us. The fire of attraction and delight. Because who is supposed to feel it if not you personally? You escape from yourself, you escape from heaven. However, the full heaven will happen only after leaving these galaxies, after leaving the body, because this kind of matter complicates things a bit. Occupations, resentments, illnesses, death, and more. There is no heaven here, just a little bit, if we can arouse it in ourselves for external forms. 1163. And now a small historical touch. I will ask the question why nothing is said about our history before Mieszko. And it lasted a very long time. The Lachites, that's what they called us. They were a power, a Lachite empire. We reached from Brittany to the Pacific Ocean. And they had one valuable thing. They had universal and tolerant minds. This is because there was a ban on all state religion. If someone tried to establish a religion, he was punished in a terrible way. Then the Jews imposed their own on the world, and we became a dot on the map. It is worth reading and learning about our history. Everyone is silent. The church with the Jews, Soviets, and Germans destroyed all our history and statehood. This is the sad truth, and now they pretend to be saints. I am throwing a small glimmer on these issues. The archives are there, but for now they keep them out of the media. Someday the truth will come out. 1164. The only thing that matters is love and goodness. This is what moves us forward in terms of a creative and peaceful civilization. Religions are evil. And Jesus, whom I happen to like, and his arguments were hypocritical, talked about this. He said that we save ourselves in our soul ourselves. And for millions of years, people have always saved themselves, on different planets and in different galaxies. Jesus only reminded us of this truth so that we personally strive for perfection. and we should repeat it, because this information is worth it. 1165. If you are distracted by the accidents in the world of politics or other matters, return to the love of your soul. Pray to your own soul, and from your own soul to heaven. Stress will pass. Tangled thoughts need to be untangled. 1166. Love always opens like a flower to the sun. Everyone is love and you can love everyone, but it's a long way, like to the stars. In heaven, the road is not there is a game of intimacy with whom you want. And this is the difference. In the galaxies, in a failed, dying, bloody world, full of indescribable suffering, it is very difficult to be guided by love. But we have to, otherwise we will never reach a higher world, above the galaxies. 1167. It is necessary to accept even the smallest good. This is difficult, because laziness always wants to overcome the good. God does not demand much from us, only the little things, Padre Pio's words. This he values more than, for example, writing, directing, patents, medicines, etc. How many times you think about the love of angels? So many times you will feel better spiritually and bodily. Introduction to love. This gesture is merely an introduction in the pursuit of love's sincerity. Counts spring of unknown counts God's joy counts. The road traveled do not recall. It has been shrouded in the mists of forgetfulness. Before you the color of lips smothered with pearls of eternity. We are sailing in a boat of hope into the curves of the future to faraway countries of happiness, where shrubs grow fragrant with the whiff of your hair. I recognize the former valley on which colors the destiny. Full of health in me as this palace is a garden, not alone in it I live, O love. How you are played out with beauty. 1168. Heresy as a sociological phenomenon does not exist. For the soul there is no heresy. There is freedom and the possibility to think. All civilizations in the various galaxies experience freedom of thought and personal inquiry into the ideals of existence. Truths imposed are the tyranny of spiritual rulers, possessed of power. Even liturgical costumes bear witness to this, as power went to the head of the clergy, unlike St. Francis of Assisi, who walked around in a potato sack. Besides, liturgical costumes were mainly adopted from the pharaohs. Heresy is a merely theological phenomenon. Theology was developed for religious conquest. I don't go into who created theology and dogma. Apparently, there was once such a need and necessity of the moment, so that all untruths did not slip out into the open. In its name, people were tortured. Religions, although they have a long tradition in manipulated minds, are fundamentally false idea of salvation of the soul. Anyone can save themselves on their own, without religious associations, church walls and philosophies. It is enough to consider what is beautiful in life and what is not. Consider your desires, longings, and salvation moves forward. No one will save anyone.